friends. So for Earth Day, I had posted on Twitter asking if anyone had any questions about the human nature relationship, to see if anyone, had any things that I could think about and answer while I'm looking for work and everything. Just wanted to keep my brain activated. And a few of you did have some really good questions for me. A couple were things that I can't just hurry up and answer. There were quite a few that I would need to collect data for and then come back to you with something actually substantial. So I'm still working on that. But I figured for now I have one that I can kind of answer. One of you had a question about how I see things, and if there's anything specific that I'm examining at the moment. So the question actually was, I'm curious to understand about the lens that you look through. Are there specific problems or anything specific to the human relationship with the environment that you're particularly focused on or concern you the most? Which I think is a great question. And I guess I'm going to take you a bit through my own history and how I got to be where I am today and studying what I did study anyway, and what I enjoy studying. So looking at people in the environment, kind of, for me, it started when I was at Stetson University, and I was in the environmental science program and geography program. And I was in a class with a professor who would assign us different books to read about like different perspectives on the environment and things. And one of the books was called Last Child in the Woods. And it was basically a book explaining nature deficit disorder, which is like basically the separation of children from nature. And so they become less connected to it, and they grow up and they don't really know much about it, and it contributes to things like ADHD and depression and all these things. So the book was basically going about explaining how our different generations had different experiences with the outdoors, and how today's generations are even less connected than previous generations because of how wired in we are with computers and video games, and not going outside as much, like to play baseball or anything like that. So it was a really interesting book, and it got me thinking, because when I was a kid, I was one of those that didn't really go outside. I didn't really like camping. Like, I didn't understand why you'd go camping. I was like, I have my computer and my video games, and like, why would I want to go and sit in dirt with bugs? Like, I don't get it. And it wasn't until college that I actually was like, wow, nature's awesome. So for me, reading this book was kind of a click. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I must not be the only person who is as I am, Like, I wonder if how other people relate to the environment, and whether or not they're actually connected with it, or if they're not, or if they just don't care, or if they never had the opportunity really to explore their environment at all. So that was kind of a little hook for me to get into it. And then after I graduated with my bachelor's degree from Stetson, I was lucky enough to get a job working with Volusia County government in DeLand as the sustainability associate there. And part of that job was really connecting with the public and figuring out their perceptions on nature and basically environmentally friendly behaviors, because a lot of them didn't really, I don't know, I think they felt more like the government was trying to force them into certain things, which we weren't doing. We were just trying to make the county a bit more sustainable, like saving energy and saving water and things. And I don't think some members of the public really understood that. So it was kind of up to me at times to go and table at events and kind of talk to them and see really how they felt about these things, and really what could change their minds and make them more inclined to want to do things like make sure the lights are turned off when you leave a room, or take shorter showers, or use water saving taps and things like that. So that job was for a year, and it was really interesting for me, and I got to work on quite a few other projects as well, but that part really stuck with me, trying to figure out how to get the public on board with different initiatives that were environmentally friendly. So that was also like more of a hook for me for the social stuff. And so when I finished that, I went and moved to Australia so that I could take on a Master of Environment degree at the University of Melbourne. And there I did a little more social research. It was it was looking at how people felt about old growth forests, which was interesting. It was interesting at the time, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. So I kind of got turned off to social research a little bit in that project, but coming into my PhD, totally got back on track. So it was kind of good because I was able to, in doing the PhD, even though it was like a specific thing that I was looking at, feral cat management, I was able to adjust it a bit in ways that would suit what I wanted to look at in terms of how people view different environmental things. So the project came about when my primary supervisor was talking to some colleagues, and they were discussing feral cat eradication on Kangaroo Island and how the government and NRM board wanted to look at how people felt about feral cats in general, and whether they would be in support of management and what methods they would be in support of, so that it would be easier for management in the future, so they know what's actually socially acceptable in different places. So that was the start of my PhD, which was really interesting for me, coming up with questionnaire ideas and whatnot to kind of ask the public how they felt about these different things. But then it got to a point where I was like, well, what if we compared this island location to a mainland location to see if that maybe influences perceptions of feral cats or perceptions of management in general. And maybe there's differences in familiarity with the topic, possibly just the different phases of management in the different places as well, because Kangaroo Island was fairly more advanced in their management at the time, whereas the other location was the Grampians that I was looking at, and they were just starting to plan their feral cat management. So it was also to see if different phases of management, familiarity with that, influenced public perceptions as well. And then from there, it went on to, so there are differences in how different places manage feral cats, and there's differences in perceptions in these different locations, which influences management. How does that work in terms of different countries? So I wanted to look at actually the discourse around feral cats in different countries, which I did by looking at social media. And basically, like, how do we talk about feral cats in different places, and how does that influence perceptions, and how do those perceptions influence the way we manage different environmental things, like feral cat management? So that was probably my favorite part of my PhD, was looking at that discourse and seeing what groups actually were the loudest in talking about feral cat management and feral cat issues, and how much influence those groups had on the rest of the general public in different locations in different countries, which is something that I'd like to continue looking into, just the way we communicate about environmental issues and how that ties in with people's connection to the environment and how much exposure they have to nature, and if that plays a part in how they talk about nature and how they feel about it, and then if that influences how we manage it. So that's kind of my main specialty, is looking at how we're connected to the environment, how we communicate about it, and how that basically influences management in different countries and different places. So that's basically my lens, and I hope that I answered your question well enough. If there are any other questions that you guys have for me, feel free to comment below, or you can always contact me on Twitter at Decology. And yeah, until next time, bye.